I'm so glad you joined us tonight for Table Talk number 40.
Oh my goodness.
I believe we're at number 40.
Big 40.
Big 40, I think.
Yeah.
And we'll find out after if we're a day ahead or a program ahead or a program behind.
Yes.
But I think it's 40. And we're just so glad you joined us. My name is Geoff.
I'm Helen.
And we're coming to you live from the Estevan Church of God, 1920 Wellick Road, right here in our studios. And we are excited about continuing on our subject that we are talking about. And my mic just fell to the ground.
I heard it.
And,
there we go.
There we go.
We're all set again.
All set again, you betcha.
Awesome.
Yes, we got some feedback from our listeners, and I think it's important for us to tackle some of that stuff. We talked about finding the courage to deal with our woundedness.
And you know what? It takes courage.
It does,
That's
absolutely.
What we found. It actually takes courage to actually go to those places.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about that last time, and we want to dive into that.
We want to dive into that again because there's some things that I think that we can elaborate on. One of the things that our listeners commented, and again, we want to just take the time, we want to appreciate the comments that you give because it helps us better tackle some of these things. And because the whole purpose of us putting this together is for everyone to benefit. And sometimes we're navigating through difficulties and working through circumstances that are less than favorable, and we're trying to make the best. And sometimes it seems like what's around us gets the best of us. And sometimes we just don't know how to go through. And one of the things that we've been saying all along, we want to keep saying, is the fact that our goal is to make these broadcasts real. We want to tackle topics that affect everyday life because we don't want to live in ideals. Ideals are one aspect of stuff, and we can never achieve that. And so if we aim here and we never get there, we lose perspective. And so we want to deal with life stuff. And that's the purpose of these table talks. And we want to deal with subjects that everybody is working towards or affecting them. It's important for us to have that real life conversations. And thus Table Talk was birthed out of that whole concept of that reality. So last week we talked about finding the courage to deal with our woundedness. And one of the things that we talked about in that episode was we are all wounded at some point.
We all are.
We're all wounded at some point. And some of the notes I made was whether it's words that have been spoken over us, situations that we found ourselves in, choices that we've made. Oftentimes we like to blame other people for our wounds. But a lot of times they're choices that we make. And as a result of those choices, we get wounded. So choices we make, events that we find ourselves in, and even relationships that we've experienced and can leave us wounded.
Yes. And you know, it's funny thinking back on our journey in our relationship and the journey of woundedness and how sometimes when I was wounded or you were wounded and then we wound each other because
I think the reality is hurt people hurt people.
Yes. Yep.
And if we're not willing to address those issues in our own life, if we're willing to pass them off as in, well, it's everybody else's fault, because I'll be honest, it's easy to blame other people when we're wounded because I think deep down we're created to want to find answers. And when we're dealing with wounds, words that have been spoken to us or situations we found ourselves in or contexts of life that are less than favorable, if we're not careful, and they affect us and they become wounds. And as a result of those wounds, we tend to blame other people for them.
And you know what? I remember doing that in our relationship too. Because it's like, you are hurting me and I want you to fix it. Like we blame that
It's not always you want me to fix it. You're wounded and I'm blaming you. If you wouldn't have done that.
Exactly.
Because again, fixing it is often not the thing that we talk about. The fixing it is not what we want. We often want justice. We want people to pay for what they've done to us. And sometimes if we don't see that happening right away, then we feel we have to step in and be that.
There we go.
We need to be that.
Yes.
And make people pay. And that can be true, but when we see it happen in other people, so then we want to fight their battle for them and we want them to pay. I think if we're honest, very little is it natural for us to take responsibility when we're wounded. Yes, people have said stuff and done stuff that wounds us, but the reality is, and this hits home for me because I love to blame people. But unless I'm willing to take responsibility for my own choice and my taking offense to that thing, it's going to hinder us from moving forward.
Yes, that is so powerful that you said that.
It's important for us to talk about that because, again, all of us have been wounded. All of us have been hurt. All of us have scars. And if we keep going through life blaming other people for those scars, a seared relationship, if it just went down south fast in a hurry, and words are said and attitudes are thrown at and accusations and all those stuff, and as a result we get wounded and we get hurt, and if we're not willing to take responsibility for our own response, I think it's very hard, near to impossible for us to move on, because anytime something like that happens that's the same or has the flavor, we go immediately to that. And I've done that many times in my own life, even 20 plus years in ministry and dealing with people. That's easy to do that. But I don't realize that when we're like that, we hold ourselves hostage.
Yes.
We can blame a drug addiction on how people treated us. We can blame alcoholism on it's just where I found myself in life. And I totally understand, because sometimes we find ourselves in really, really messy places where we feel like our back is up against the wall. We have no choice, and as a result of it, we step into things that we step into, and then we find ourselves in a culture of addiction, and we can't get out.
And you know what? Because sometimes when we're wounded and we don't know how to handle that pain, we are looking for relief of some sort. So, and that's what we turn to, different things. And sometimes those things are ending up destroying us more. And
but we don't see it at the time, because they masquerade as a relief.
Yes.
And so whenever we find ourselves in trouble, whenever we find ourselves in a situation where it's hard, those are our go-to, because we've seen them as relief when really they've damaged us. And so as a result of that, we can be in a spiral in life. And as we spiral, it seems like we create a bigger and bigger mess. And if we learn, and I'm speaking to myself because I've still run into situations where I find myself wounded because of things that are done or situations I find myself in. But if I'm willing to take responsibility for my actions, yes, I got wounded, but now I have the choice. I have an opportunity to take responsibility for that wound.
Yes.
And the opposite of responsibility is blaming other people and pointing the finger, because the moment and this is so real, the moment we point fingers, we never deal with the problem.
No, we stay the victim. And I like what you said, and we are held hostage in that pain.
And it's important to talk about being victims, because it can be as small as we don't like a decision that's made, or we want to go back to a safe zone in our life, or we want to go back to the way it was, and it's not getting that way. And so as a result, we point the finger, but we don't take responsibility. And if everybody else would just make the right choices, then my life would be simpler, when we are the key to our own freedom.
Yes, because God's given us everything that we need
for life, and God, He's given us that. So the resources are there that He's given us. And oftentimes, when I've been in a vulnerable situation, I've always looked to something to help quick. I'm looking for a quick fix, because sometimes I don't like process. Sometimes I don't like struggle. Sometimes I don't like taking responsibility for decisions I made.
Exactly.
And man, when we learn that, when we learn, we can't do anything about what other people do. The only thing we can do is take responsibility for ourselves. We want change. State starts with me. We want people to forgive us. Forgiveness starts with me. We want people to free us. Freedom starts with us.
And that is huge, because
it's a game changer. And
it is.
And if we could grasp that, and again, if this is something that's resonating with you, we encourage you to share this with other people, because this is not just exclusive stuff. One of the things that really moved my heart is to see impact in the lives of people outside of a system. I'm telling you, a system doesn't do it.
No.
A certain perception of theology doesn't do it.
No.
Because, and that's my struggle sometimes, and when I see people struggle, and in my own struggle, my tendency is to go back to a system. We've got to learn, listen carefully, we've got to learn to flush the system down the toilet.
Yep. Yeah.
When we become real with our circumstances, real with our responsibility, real with our own emotions and hurt, when we become real, and that's why I think it's so important that God has got to be in the picture, because when we become real, He opens up the resources for us to begin healing in our own life.
Yes.
And I say this passionately because I think this is sometimes where the church has missed it, because we offer systems, we offer an answer to every problem, and sometimes it's not about that. Sometimes it's about being real, understanding I'm in a mess. I've made some bad choices. I'm taking responsibility for it, because I believe enough of myself that God wants to set me free.
Yes.
And He wants to set you free.
Yes.
And the moment we allow someone else to rob that from us, we miss out, not them. We do. And so we want to speak to you tonight for the next, in this 30-minute segment, we want to tell you that your freedom is yours.
It is.
It's not found in the church building. It's not found in correct teaching, although those are important. It's found in a person, and that person is Jesus, and that's the life giver. There's a verse here that I wrote down that I wanted to talk about later on, but I think it's important for us to interject this right now, and it says, Jesus says, I have come to give you life. He did. He is the embodiment of truth. Religion can't do it. Church can't do it. Theology can't do it. The right words can't do it. It's
doing the right things.
Doing the right things. It's Jesus. And the moment, listen to me, people, when you invite Jesus into that space where you're wounded and hurt, that's when healing can begin for you. But unless we take responsibility for how I feel, we can't help what's done to us, but we can take responsibility how we feel. And the moment we learn that, we step into the freedom that God says is ours.
Because He knows who we are. He knows what's inside you.
Absolutely.
And you know what? He declares it already, that the freedom is ours. He came and he took care of every wound.
Absolutely.
He paid for our healing.
Absolutely.
He did.
And I think the turning point in my life was when I experienced that in here.
Yes.
It was for me.
That's
the truth was for me.
Yes.
And
you're worth it.
And right away, people wanted to put me in a system. Well, take this class, take this course, take this thing, confess this, pray this, do all these things. And again, all those things aren't bad.
No.
But they aren't the answer.
It's not a formula. It's not.
And sometimes it's hard for me to say that, because we've learned to make formulas.
Yep. Yeah,
this book did it, or this thought did it, or this teaching did it. And they all have a part to play. They all have and I don't want to, they have a part to play.
Absolutely.
But it's time.
Yeah.
It's time for us to grow up and take responsibility and say, it's my life.
Yes.
I'm taking responsibility. I'm inviting Jesus into my life, my experiences, my journey, my hurt, my pain.
Yeah.
And again, I think sometimes we look for a quick fix. Just say the word, pray the prayer, just take the course, all these things. But the reality is, we can take all those things and nothing change.
Yep. Still be
because we have to encounter the truth for us, and we can live playing the victim. And you know how easy it was for me to play the victim.
Yeah.
I could blame everyone else, and
it would frustrate me. It would frustrate me when, not saying you were the only one who did it, because I know I did it too, but sometimes it's like, how long are you going to stay there? How long are you going to stay in that prison? The door's open, but you're freaking staying in that prison, because when you begin to believe that God has created you to be free,
yes,
despite what other people say,
you to excel, you to rise above.
Yes, that you don't have to stay.
We don't have to. We don't have to live with our hurts. We've adapted our culture in our life to live with them.
Yes.
Because oftentimes our wounds have become our identity.
Yes.
Our wounds and our hurts have started defining us. And that's why I think a lot of times we can stay there, is because it's become who we are.
Yes.
And we got to change that.
Yep.
We got to recognize that that's not who we are.
That's right.
It's where we're at, but it's not who we are.
Yes.
And that's the hope.
Yeah.
That's the hope.
Yeah. We want to speak hope tonight.
Absolutely,
because I know
we do.
we've been there. We're thinking, how are we ever going to make it through?
So the question I want to ask you then, and let's go here a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, how do we find healing? What do we do? Okay, we know we've been hurt. We know we've been damaged. We know how do we? And the first thing I thought of, and this will create conversation, I believe, and it's we need to admit we have them first.
Yeah.
If we don't admit we have wounds, we're not going to address them.
Yeah.
Or if we just constantly blame other people for what they've done to us, we're just not going to move on.
Yeah.
And this is true for every kind of addiction. Too often I've made excuses for my addictions. Whether my addiction is negative thoughts, whether my addiction is going into a bad space in my mind, because addiction is something we keep going to for a relief.
Yes. Yeah.
And we can sit here and point the finger at the people that have struggled with drug addiction. We can sit here and point the finger at people that have dealt with alcohol. We can sit here and point the finger that have, done drugs and working through that kind of stuff. But really, in reality, and hear my heart, it makes no difference what we go to. It's the effect it has on our life, because that is a lie that we've been living.
Yes.
And if we can come to grips with that lie and recognize that isn't the answer, I don't have to stay here.
Yes.
And if we could understand that we don't have to stay there.
Yeah, that's huge. I remember.
And we get tired enough of our stinking circumstances that we need to step up and change.
I remember, honey, and this was several years back, when you came to that epiphany, I don't have to live with this.
Yeah.
I remember that switch in your mindset of understanding, I don't have to stay in this prison.
Whatever people have told you.
Yes.
This is who you are.
Yeah.
You're once and now you'll always be.
Yeah.
There is no hope for you. Once you've crossed the line, that's who you're going to be. We're telling you no.
Yeah.
We're telling you no. We're telling you no.
Yeah. And we've been here, and I wrote this down, hon, because sometimes we've stayed in that place, and it just says, some wounded wallowers are also obsessed with unpaid debts. So someone's done me wrong. I have to do something. They deserve. But the payback never comes. And this is what was written. I just read it tonight. It says, joyful people finish their life stories on a very different note. They begin by appreciation. Instead of going over and over what they've lost and what's been hurt, they focus on what they've gained.
It's a change of perspective.
It is a change of perspective.
And again, this is about giving you hope.
Yeah.
Hope never disappoints. That's what the Bible says.
Yep.
Hope never disappoints.
Yeah.
So it's important for us to have our life in the right hope.
Yes. Yep.
And our life is worth freedom. So admit that we have them.
Yeah.
That is step one for stepping into freedom.
Yeah. That was huge for me because I didn't ever want to admit that I had hurts because I thought I have to be this strong person. I can take anything. I can walk over everything. And it was really when I began to admit, wow, I am falling apart. I am broken inside. I'm really hurting. I'm feeling rejected. That was huge for me.
This brings me to the second one because we want to honor our time.
Yep.
And this is important. And I want to say this carefully because I understand what it's like when we're living in pain.
Yeah.
We're living in sorrow. When we're living in disappointment. I know because I've been there. My life's been defined by that for so many years. And I've given excuses for that. The question is, first of all, we have to admit that we have them. That's step one.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm hurt. I'm damaged. I have things to work through.
Yes.
Step one. The second thing, and I had to ask myself this question, and I wanna propose it to you as well as you wrestle through your circumstances or whatever areas in your life you've been wounded. We've got to learn to ask ourselves, what cost are we willing to pay for our freedom? Freedom has a cost because we have to let go of that, what binds us.
Wow, that's good.
Freedom is a cost.
Yeah.
If we can sit here and tell you freedom just comes naturally, that's a lie.
Yeah.
It's natural for us to want to be free.
Yes.
It's natural for us. That's a natural thing.
Yeah.
But it is unnatural for it to happen just by itself. And so,
there's a journey.
For the next 3 minutes, let us speak to you about your journey. What are you willing? What are you willing? What price are you willing to pay for your freedom? Because forgiveness is a price. Accepting where I'm at and discontent of staying there is a price.
Yes.
Because everything in life is based on the decisions, and my heart hurts.
Yeah.
I'm sitting down with people that are going through struggles. That are just wanting it just to go away without making strategic choices.
Yes.
We can't run away from that. Life is full of choices. And man alive, I don't want to rob myself when someone else wants to make the choice for me.
Yes. Yep.
Whether it is religion, church structure, certain theologies. I'm not letting that rob me of what I know God promises for my life. And I'm enjoying pushing through things because I'm willing to pay the price. Sometimes the price we pay is seeking professional help. And living with the reality that this choice is going to have consequences, but it's more important to me to be free than not to say no to some of this stuff. And we want you to be free to reach out. We got to be willing to reach out. We got to be willing to be discontent enough to say, I'm willing to pay what it's going to cost for me to be free. And that's a journey. But part of that journey is reaching out to somebody and saying, this is where I'm at. I need help. Where do I need to go? And willing to sacrifice what it takes to get there. For so many years, and let me close at this. For so many years, I thought I couldn't be free because this was my lot in life. And as I lived in that place in my life, I accepted whatever came. I accepted whatever words. I accepted whatever diagnosed it. I've accepted whatever people could speak over me. I just accepted it because I came to a conclusion that's who I am. When I began to recognize that's not who I am, man, my world began to open up. I mean, and we're facing all kinds of stuff. We face relationship breakdown. We face work structure that end up losing our job and dealing with this thing, and now we got this to deal with and all this. And I mean, there's so many people around that are dealing with so much. And man, you're worth being free. You're worth stepping into it. You're worth grabbing hold of it. You're worth the price that it takes for your freedom.
Your value.
And here's another question I ask someone: what are you willing to sacrifice for it? You see, if it's not valuable, we're not willing to sacrifice. If we don't believe it's important, we're willing to sacrifice. And I'm telling you, your life is worth sacrificing for. When he says, I have come, Jesus says, I have come to give you life. And that you would have it in more abundance. Man, I tell you,
there is a freedom.
The sky is the limit. If we could grab hold of that and begin to believe it and begin to align ourselves with it and pay the necessary price it's going to take for us to start making decisions and start not blaming people, taking responsibility for our life. I mean, wow. Folks, this is real stuff.
It is.
We have been through the ringer. I have put people through the ringer because of my own lack of freedom and acceptance of myself, because I don't want people to feel better about themselves if I can, and how we navigate through all that stuff. I believe addiction can be broken. I believe mindsets can be broken. I believe that patterns that we've developed over years and years can be broken. The question is, do we admit we have them? And what cost are we willing to pay for that to be a reality in my life? And I'm telling you, desperate people take desperate measures.
And you know what? Those few things you said, even forgiveness, it just takes a humility. It takes laying down our pride, our reputation.
Listen, are we going to disappoint people? Absolutely we are. And you know what? I want to do whatever I can do to minimize that. But if we give grace to people that they're going to disappoint us, then we don't hold them hostage. Because we really hold ourselves hostage. People said you've tried 5, 6 times and it doesn't change. Well, you know what? There's 7, 8, 9 times. One guy said this to me, and I will close with this. He says, your life can be defined by how many times you've fallen off or how many times you got back up. And we want to be the champion to speak right now, tonight. Table Talk 40.
40.
You're worth it.
You are worth it.
You are important enough to invest in. God loves you the way you are. And he's committed, if you allow him to journey with you to healing and freedom.
It's yours.
It's yours. Folks, we just want to say thank you so much for joining us. So glad you joined us. I know many people view this after the live stream talk. And again, we want to encourage you. Would you take the time to hit the share button so the other people in your life, in your sphere of influence, have an opportunity to grab hold of some of this truth. You can log on to Facebook. You can like us on Facebook. We have our YouTube channel. And again, it's important for us to tell you, these are just resources that you can tap into. All you do, type in, you go to YouTube, Estevan Church of God. Our logo comes up there. Click on it. Subscribe. Because then you'll always get fresh things. What's happening right now, this is going on Facebook Live, and then we take this program and we put it on our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So if people don't get it, they can always get it on our YouTube channel.
Yes.
And as well, our YouTube channel is full of resources.
Yeah.
Our Sunday morning services are recorded.
Yeah.
There's songs recorded. There's table talks recorded. We have another podcast that we do called Coffee Talk, where we invite people in the community and talk about pertinent issues of what's going on and sometimes how they navigate through things, and sometimes just to highlight life, because I don't think we celebrate enough.
Yes.
And so that's our whole purpose. So we would love to hear from you.
We
Hit
would
us a
love
like.
to connect with you.
Yeah, we'd love to connect with you.
We'd love to see you Sunday morning if you want to join
Absolutely.
us.
1920 Wellick Road at 10:30 Sunday morning.
Yes.
And again, every Wednesday and every second Friday or every third Friday, we have a special guest that comes in.
Yeah.
We call it Table Talk. We record that as well.
Coffee Talk.
A Coffee Talk.
Yep.
And it's just, again, resources that we can leave you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us
Thanks
tonight.
for joining us. We'll talk to you again next week.
Have a great night.